South Korea has some of the highest stomach cancer rates in the world. It also has some of the most diverse, resilient gut microbiomes researchers have ever measured. Same country, same diet culture, both true at once. That paradox is the first thing on this list, and it's just the start. Fermented foods aren't old kitchen tricks. They're alive, billions of bacteria and enzymes still working long after you swallow them, doing things pasteurized, shelf-stable food simply can't. Here are 10 of them, pulled at random from a much longer list. A couple go back far enough to show up in some of the oldest writing humans have ever kept. Let's start with that paradox. 1. Kimchi. I'll start with a confession. The first time I tried kimchi, I thought something was wrong with it. It smelled sharp, sour, and slightly alive in a way I wasn't used to. It took 3 tries before I actually liked it. Now, I can't imagine my fridge without a jar of it. The leading explanation for that paradox points straight at what's fermenting in that jar. Kimchi is fermented cabbage and radish, built on a base of chili, garlic, ginger, and fish sauce, left to develop over days or weeks. That fermentation produces a spread of lactobacillus strains, including one lactobacillus kimchi that barely shows up anywhere else in the fermented food world. Researchers have connected regular kimchi consumption to better immune regulation, lower cholesterol, improved insulin sensitivity, and reduced inflammatory markers. The capsaicin in the chili adds its own metabolism-nudging, anti-inflammatory effect. And the garlic isn't just flavor. It supplies fructooligosaccharides, a prebiotic fiber that feeds the very bacteria the fermentation just delivered. It's a food that ships its own supply chain. Traditional Korean households didn't stop at one jar. Multiple kinds, cabbage, radish, cucumber, scallion, sat on the table at once. Because variety of strains mattered as much as quantity, some families still keep a dedicated kimchi refrigerator set to a precise temperature for exactly this reason. A small portion, a few tablespoons, at most meals, seems to be enough to matter. It's worth saying plainly, kimchi has no historical footprint in the biblical world. This way of preparing cabbage is a Korean innovation, centuries and a continent removed from scripture. But there's a principle worth borrowing anyway. Paul told Timothy that everything God created is good, and nothing should be rejected, once it's received with gratitude. 1 Timothy 4:4. Words written specifically to counter people who were rejecting perfectly good food out of suspicion. Not a bad verse to sit with the next time an unfamiliar smelling jar makes you hesitate. Which raises a question I keep coming back to. If a fermented cabbage side dish can hold a paradox like that inside it, what else have we been dismissing as just a condiment? Let's shift from something spicy to something with an entirely different kind of kick. One that's gotten athletes into actual trouble at the elite level. 2. Fermented beetroot. Beets already have a reputation as one of the most nutrient-dense vegetables around. Ferment them, and you get something closer to a performance-enhancing food than a side dish, which isn't an exaggeration, as you're about to see. Lacto-fermentation concentrates betalains, the pigments responsible for beets' deep red color, into a more potent, more bioavailable antioxidant. But the real story here is nitrates. Beets are naturally rich in them, and oral bacteria convert those nitrates into nitric oxide, a molecule that relaxes and widens blood vessels. That matters more than it sounds. Meta-analyses of clinical trials show beetroot juice lowers systolic blood pressure by several points on average. with some longer or higher dose trials showing reductions, approaching what you'd expect from a mild blood pressure medication. Studies on athletes show measurable improvements in time to exhaustion, oxygen efficiency, and recovery. The effect is strong enough that nitrate loading has drawn real scrutiny in some elite endurance sports, where the line between food and performance aid gets blurry fast. Fermentation adds lactobacillus strains on top of all that, plus better bioavailability for the beet's natural iron and folate. It also solves a texture problem. Raw beets can be tough on sensitive digestion, while fermented ones tend to be much gentler. One honest warning, because I wish someone had told me the first time: fermented beets will turn your urine, and sometimes stool, pink or red. It looks alarming. It isn't. That's just the betulins passing through, doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Beets themselves aren't named in scripture the way grain or grapes are, but they fall squarely under the broadest food principle in the Bible. In Genesis, God tells the first humans that every seed-bearing plant and every fruit-bearing tree is given to them for food. Genesis 1. Arshadzio. A root vegetable pulled from the ground and fermented in its own brine fits that description as well as anything does. A half cup as a side dish, or a small glass of the brine before a meal, is the traditional dose. From something humans deliberately cultivate and ferment, let's go back even further to fermentation that happens completely on its own, with no jar, no salt, and no human involved at all. 3. Wild fermented fruit. Here's a fact that reframes everything else on this list. Fermentation didn't start in a kitchen. It started on a tree branch. Ripe fruit left on the vine, or fallen and forgotten on the ground, ferments entirely on its own. Wild yeasts and bacteria, living on every piece of fruit skin, start working. The moment sugar is exposed to air, no starter culture, no human intervention, just biology doing what it's done for millions of years. Every fruit-eating creature that evolved alongside this process, humans included, grew up digesting fruit in this partially fermented state. Even the Bible's earliest recorded episode of fermentation follows this same logic, if not the exact method. After the flood, Genesis describes Noah planting a vineyard and, later, drinking wine made from its fruit, the same natural conversion of sugar into alcohol through wild yeast that humans eventually learned to direct on purpose, instead of waiting for chance. Wild fermented mangoes, plums, berries, and citrus show up across traditional food cultures as digestive aids and mild remedies for everything from constipation to respiratory congestion. The fermentation process partially breaks down the fruit's sugars, lowering its glycemic impact, while concentrating polyphenols. It generates natural enzymes, amylases, proteases, lipases that assist digestion directly, along with organic acids that tilt the gut environment toward beneficial bacteria. Modern lab analysis backs up the old folklore. Fermented fruit shows higher antioxidant activity than fresh fruit, stronger prebiotic effects, and better bioavailability for compounds like anthocyanins and resveratrol. You'll still find this logic alive in fruit chutneys across Indian and Middle Eastern cooking, or in fruit-based kvass. It's one of the oldest relationships humans have with food, and also one of the most quietly forgotten. If wild fruit shows how fermentation can happen almost by accident, the next one on this list shows what happens when people deliberately teamed up with it, turning a bag of milk and a strange, cauliflower-shaped culture into one of the most probiotic-dense drinks on earth. 4. KEFIR. KEFIR gets its name from a Turkish word, that roughly translates to feeling good. Once you understand what's actually happening inside a bottle of it, that name stops sounding like marketing and starts sounding like a fair description. KEFIR is milk fermented with kefir grains, not actual grains, but small, rubbery clusters of bacteria and yeast, living in a symbiotic colony that looks a little like tiny cauliflower florets. Feed them milk, wait a day, and you get a tangy, drinkable ferment containing somewhere between 20 and 60 distinct probiotic strains. Commercial yogurt, by comparison, typically carries 2 to 7. That's not a small gap, it's closer to a different category of food entirely. What sets KEFIR apart even further is persistence. Clinical research suggests its bacteria don't just pass through your digestive system on the way out. Some strains genuinely establish residence in the gut. That's part of why KEFIR shows up so consistently in research on lactose intolerance. Fermentation predigests much of the lactose before you ever drink it. IBS, symptom relief, and reduced inflammatory markers. Some animal studies have even pointed to anti-tumor activity worth further investigation. There's also a growing, genuinely interesting body of research on KEFIR and mood. The gut-brain axis, the communication line running between your digestive system and your brain, is real, and the serotonin-related pathways that a healthy microbiome supports appear to respond to what KEFIR delivers. I think about the Caucasus mountain communities who've been drinking this for centuries, among the longest-lived populations ever studied, and wonder how much of that had nothing to do with luck. A cup a day is the traditional amount. From here, let's go from something you drink to something most people have already eaten 1,000 times without a second thought. 5. Sauerkraut. Sauerkraut might be the most underestimated food on this entire list, mostly because it looks so plain. Cabbage and salt. That's the whole ingredient list. And yet what happens when you leave those two things alone for a week or two is one of the more medically interesting transformations in food science. Lactobacillus bacteria, already living on raw cabbage leaves, take over once the salt creates the right environment. They consume the cabbage's natural sugars and produce lactic acid, and the result is a living food that can carry billions of probiotic organisms per serving, along with vitamin C, vitamin K2, cancer-fighting glucosinolates from the cabbage itself, and organic acids that calm inflammation along the gut lining. Here's a piece of history that puts a real number on how effective this food is. When Captain James Cook set out on his Pacific voyages in the 1760s, scurvy was expected to kill a significant share of any long-distance crew. Cook loaded thousands of pounds of sauerkraut onto his ships, close to 8,000 pounds for a single voyage, after noticing that crews who ate it suffered far less. His sailors, famously stubborn about foreign food, wouldn't touch it until Cook had his officers eat it first, visibly and enthusiastically, until the crew wanted in on it too. By the end of that 3-year voyage, scurvy had barely touched his ship. Fermentation had, in effect, changed the outcome of an entire era of exploration. Clinical research today backs up what Cook stumbled into by observation alone. Fermented cabbage improves microbiome diversity, reduces intestinal permeability, what's often called leaky gut, and supports immune regulation. A 2021 Stanford study found that a high-fermented food diet increased microbiome diversity more effectively over just 10 weeks than a high-fiber diet did. Over that same period, a genuinely surprising result, even to the researchers who ran it. One catch: the shelf-stable sauerkraut sitting in a grocery store aisle is pasteurized. Zero live bacteria. The real thing lives cold, in the refrigerated section or your own jar. and it should bubble a little when you open it. 2 to 4 tablespoons with a meal is the traditional dose, and don't skip the brine. It's just as potent as the kraut itself. From a food that helped change naval history, let's move to one that's been quietly hiding in your cheese drawer the whole time. 6. Raw aged cheese. Here's something most people never stop to consider. Cheese, made properly, is a fermented food. Decades of industrial dairy processing pasteurized and homogenized that fact almost out of existence, but the underlying biology never changed. Raw milk cheeses, aged Parmesan, aged Gouda, raw cheddar, Roquefort, and similar traditional styles carry active bacterial cultures that survive inside the cheese's structure and reach your gut alive. Research on these aged raw varieties has identified meaningful populations of Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium species. The aging process also produces short-chain fatty acids that directly feed colonocytes, the cells lining your colon, supporting the integrity of that barrier. Aged cheese is additionally one of the richest dietary sources of vitamin K2 in its most bioavailable form, MK7. The form responsible for directing calcium into your bones and away from your artery walls. Cheese has mattered enough for long enough that it shows up repeatedly in some of the oldest texts we have. In the Old Testament, David is sent by his father to bring 10 cuts of cheese to his brother's military commander, the same chapter, notably in which David goes on to face Goliath. 1 Samuel 17, 17-18. Years later, when David flees Jerusalem during his own son Absalom's rebellion, exhausted and hungry, supporters meet him at Mahanaim with provisions that include cheese made from cow's milk. 2 Samuel 17. 17-29. It's a small detail, but it tells you cheese wasn't a luxury item back then. It was practical, portable, sustaining food, exactly what you'd bring to a tired, hungry king and his men. The key modern distinction is raw and aged. Pasteurized, processed cheese, even brands marketed as natural, has had its live culture destroyed during production. Traditional hard cheeses from small producers or imported European varieties are your best bet for the real thing. An ounce or two, eaten as part of a meal the way Europeans have done for centuries, is the traditional portion. Treat it as a condiment, not a centerpiece. Speaking of foods people have been fermenting since before written history, let's talk about a vegetable. Most of us have only ever eaten drowned in vinegar, which, it turns out, is exactly the wrong way to get its benefits. 7 lacto-fermented pickles. There are 2 completely different foods sold under the name pickles, and only one of them does anything for your gut. The pickles lining most grocery store shelves are made with vinegar, fast, cheap, shelf-stable, and containing 0 live bacteria. The sourness is chemical, not biological. Nothing fermented, nothing survived to reach you. Lacto-fermented pickles are a different food entirely. Made from nothing but cucumbers, salt, water, and thyme, the salt brine selects for lactobacillus bacteria, which preserve the cucumber through genuine fermentation, producing lactic acid, enzymes, and live cultures that make it to your gut intact. This isn't a new discovery. Fermented cucumbers have been part of the table across Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Asia for thousands of years, used as a digestive aid, a hangover remedy, and general immune support. Cucumbers themselves are old enough to earn a mention in the Book of Numbers, where the Israelites, tired of manna in the wilderness, wistfully recall the cucumbers, melons, onions, and garlic they used to eat freely back in Egypt. Numbers 11:5. A small but vivid detail about what people were actually growing and craving thousands of years ago. The brine has its own reputation too. Athletes have used pickle brine for rapid muscle cramp relief for years, and researchers now believe the effect comes from a neural reflex triggered by the brine's acidic compounds, not simple rehydration, as most people assume. Beyond that, lacto-fermented vegetables have been shown to increase both the density and diversity of beneficial gut bacteria, while also delivering meaningful vitamin C and minerals from the cucumber itself. 3 to 5 spears, or a small handful of slices, a few times a week, is a reasonable target. Read the label before you buy. If vinegar is one of the first ingredients, it isn't the food we're talking about here. The brine, like sauerkrauts, is medicinal in its own right, so don't pour it down the drain. Now let's talk about a fermented drink that's trendy today but was, until fairly recently, made almost exclusively by hand in someone's kitchen. 8. Kombucha. Kombucha starts as sweetened tea and ends up, 1 to 3 weeks later, as something your body handles very differently, thanks to a SCOBY, a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast that looks a little unsettling floating in a jar and does far more than its appearance suggests. That fermentation produces organic acids, mainly acetic acid and glucuronic acid, with real, documented liver support and detoxification effects. Glucuronic acid specifically binds to certain toxins in the body and helps usher them out through the kidneys and bile. It's the actual biochemical mechanism behind kombucha's old reputation as a cleansing drink. And it turns out that reputation wasn't just folklore. Kombucha also picks up B vitamins generated during fermentation, antioxidants from the tea's natural polyphenols, and a modest, though real, probiotic content. It carries fewer live bacteria than kefir or sauerkraut, but its organic acid profile gives it a role none of the others quite replicate. There's also something oddly human about how kombucha spreads. A healthy SCOBY produces a baby with every batch, and for generations, people have simply handed these off to friends and neighbors rather than buying one, which means the culture bubbling in your kitchen today might genuinely be descended from one that started fermenting decades ago, passed hand to hand the whole way. Kombucha begins as tea, which means it begins with leaves, and that detail lines up with a specific image late in the Bible. A river lined with trees whose fruit is for food and whose leaves are for healing. Ezekiel 47:12. An image echoed again near the end of Revelation. Nobody's suggesting Ezekiel had tea in mind, but the idea that a plant's leaves, not just its fruit, could carry something genuinely medicinal is a very old one. Here's the catch, and it's an important one. Commercial kombucha varies enormously. Plenty of bottled versions are pasteurized, which kills the live culture entirely, or loaded with enough added sugar to cancel out most of the benefit. Look for raw, unpasteurized kombucha, with live cultures listed on the label and sugar content under about 5 grams per serving. Brewing it yourself removes the guesswork completely. 4 to 8 ounces before a meal, treated as a digestive tonic rather than a soda replacement you drink freely all day, is the traditional approach. It's meant to be purposeful, not constant. I'll admit this next one took me the longest to get used to. Not the taste, but the smell. Stick with me, because what it does for your cardiovascular system might be the single most surprising fact in this entire list. NATTO. If there's one food on this list that deserves to be far more famous in the West than it currently is, it's this one. Natto is fermented soybeans, made not with a mold like miso or tempeh, but with a bacterium, Bacillus subtilis. The result smells strong, stretches into thin strings when you pull a spoonful apart, and contains a compound that might be the single most cardiovascular relevant molecule in all of fermented food, natto kinase. Natto kinase is an enzyme produced only during natto's fermentation, and it does something genuinely remarkable. It breaks down fibrin, the protein your body uses to form blood clots. Research going back to the 1980s, first in Japan and increasingly in Western clinical trials, has shown natto kinase enhances the body's own clot-dissolving machinery. It helps convert prurokinase into active urokinase, degrades a clotting inhibitor called PAI1, and directly breaks down fibrin buildup. Some of that research is now advancing into formal clinical trials in the United States, studying its potential for preventing atherothrombotic disease, a level of scientific interest most fermented foods never receive. Since clot formation plays a direct role in heart attacks and strokes, a food that interferes with unwanted fibrin accumulation isn't a minor curiosity. It's doing something genuinely protective. On top of that, natto is the single richest dietary source of vitamin K2 in the MK7 form. A single serving can supply over 300 micrograms, compared to the roughly 30 to 50 micrograms most researchers consider a baseline target. K2 is the nutrient responsible for directing calcium into your bones and out of your arteries. Its shortage is linked to arterial calcification, osteoporosis, and cardiovascular disease generally. Natto handles that almost single-handedly. Natto has no historical connection to the biblical world at all. It's a Japanese food, full stop. But its strong smell and off-putting first impression are exactly the kind of things Scripture speaks to in a broader sense. After the flood, God tells Noah that everything that lives and moves, alongside every green plant, is now given to humanity for food. Genesis 9:3, a sweeping, generous expansion. Not a narrow list of pre-approved items. The principle behind that verse has always been bigger than any single dinner table. 50 to 100 grams daily, often eaten over rice at breakfast in Japan, is the traditional serving, and it may be one small piece of why Japanese cardiovascular longevity outpaces so much of the world. The smell and texture take some getting used to. Try it anyway. I did, eventually, and I don't regret it. Let's close this list with a drink that used to be given to sick people, elderly people, and infants, for reasons science is only now able to fully explain. 10. Cultured buttermilk. What comes in a carton in the dairy aisle today, thick and tangy, made from pasteurized milk with a little lactic acid added back in, is not the buttermilk your great-grandparents knew. True cultured buttermilk was the thin, tangy liquid left behind after churning cream into butter, naturally fermented, rich in live cultures and enzymes, and unusually easy on digestion. Across traditional households in Ireland, Scandinavia, and South Asia, it wasn't a specialty item. It was the daily digestive drink. Sick people were given it first. Elderly people drank it every day. Infants were weaned onto it. That's not a small detail. It's centuries of accumulated, repeated practice. The Bible captures this same instinct for curds and milk as a food of hospitality and sustenance. In Genesis, when 3 visitors arrive at Abraham's tent, one of the first things he sets before them is curds and milk, alongside prepared meat. Genesis 18. In Judges, when the exhausted commander Sisera asks Jael for water, she gives him milk and curds instead, food meant to restore someone who is completely depleted. Judges 5. Arshawu. Long before anyone understood lactic acid bacteria, people understood that this particular food helped a worn-out body recover. Modern research explains why. True cultured buttermilk is lower in fat than whole milk, making it gentle to digest while still carrying active lactic acid bacteria. It contains phospholipids, sphingomyelin specifically, that support the integrity of the intestinal lining, with some research suggesting a possible protective role against colorectal cancer. It also delivers highly bioavailable choline, B12, potassium, and calcium, while its lactic acid stimulates digestive enzyme secretion and discourages pathogenic bacteria from taking hold. In traditional Indian medicine, buttermilk spiced with cumin, ginger, and salt, called khas, is still the go-to post-meal digestive. That's a prescription thousands of years old, and it still holds up. A glass with or after a meal, lightly spiced, is the traditional way to drink it. It's a digestive remedy that actually tastes like something you'd choose on its own. 10 foods. Thousands of years of accumulated practice behind every single one, and a genuinely strange thing keeps happening throughout this list. The traditions that seem the most old-fashioned: a dedicated kimchi refrigerator, brine kept instead of poured out, cheese sent to a hungry army, buttermilk given to the sick, keep turning out to have real biochemistry sitting underneath them. None of the people who built these food traditions ran a clinical trial. They didn't need to. They had generations of paying close attention to what made people feel better, recover faster, and live longer, and they shaped their kitchens around those observations. What's happened since is that modern research has slowly, one study at a time, caught up and mostly confirmed what was already sitting on the table. What strikes me most is how much of this got lost, not because it stopped working, but because it stopped being convenient. Pasteurization and shelf stability were easier to mass produce than fermentation ever was. The biology didn't change. Most of us just quietly stopped choosing it. The one thing I'd genuinely ask you to take from this isn't a shopping list. It's a filter. Quality matters enormously here. The gap between real, raw, unpasteurized sauerkraut and the shelf-stable, vinegar-soaked version sharing its name isn't small. One is alive. The other only looks like it. So here's a small, honest ask. Pick one food from this list, just one, and put it in your fridge this week. Not all 10. Give it 2 weeks. Pay attention to how you actually feel, and let that be what decides whether a second one earns a spot next to it. Thank you for watching this whole list through. Let me know in the comments which one surprised you most, or which one's already sitting in your kitchen. I read every single comment. See you in the next one.